How to Train Your Mind to Obey You. Miyamoto Musashi. In a forgotten valley beneath a mountain erased from modern maps, a young warrior once climbed toward a temple that did not exist in any official record. Travelers spoke of it rarely, and when they did, their voices lowered, as if sound itself should not disturb whatever lived there. He was not searching for victory, nor glory. He had already tasted both, and found them strangely hollow. He came for something far more dangerous: control over his own mind. Because the warrior had discovered a truth few dare admit: the greatest enemy never approaches from the outside. It rises quietly within. It whispers hesitation at the exact moment action is required. It floods the body with fear when the path demands courage. And just when silence is needed most, so it unleashes the restless noise of the ego. In his last duel, his blade had been flawless, his footwork precise, his breathing trained. Yet one fractured thought slipped in like winter air through a cracked door. What if you fail? That single question slowed his strike. Steel touched his neck before he even understood he had lost. From that day forward, the warrior feared not death, but his own undisciplined mind. So he climbed, higher into thinning air, past frozen pines that bent like old men in prayer, until he reached a wooden gate bound by a faded red thread, a symbol, some believed, of a vow never to be broken. Behind it lived the old master, rumored to have studied the discipline of Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated swordsman who wrote that the spirit must stand before the sword ever moves. When the warrior arrived, trembling from cold and expectation, he waited for teachings, for techniques, perhaps even secret rituals. Instead, the master placed a weathered bucket into his hands. "Fill it from the river," he said. The warrior bowed and obeyed. Only later did he discover the river lay half a mile down a slope glazed with ice, where even mountain goats stepped carefully. The first descent burned his legs. The second numbed them. By the fifth, irritation began speaking louder than the wind. This is pointless. This is beneath a warrior. Why train a swordsman like a servant? The master never explained. He only watched, still as a stone marker over an unnamed grave. Days passed. Then something subtle shifted. The warrior began noticing that the loudest resistance did not come from the mountain, but from his own thoughts. And modern neuroscience would one day describe this phenomenon as cognitive friction, the brain's instinctive protest against effort to conserve energy. The ancient masters needed no laboratory to recognize it. They simply called it the rebellion of the untamed mind. On the seventh morning, before the protest could form, the warrior lifted the bucket and walked. No argument, no drama, only movement. And in that quiet obedience, a realization appeared. Soft as snowfall, the training had begun long before the sword. Because before a warrior can command the world, his mind must first learn to kneel. The ancient system taught something easily misunderstood. Discipline is not force. It is alignment, not domination, but presence. Not suppression, but transformation. And somewhere between the frozen river and the silent temple, the warrior sensed that the man who had climbed the mountain would not be the same one to descend it. If something within you recognizes this silence, remain and walk the path with us. Chapter 1. The Enemy Without a Face. Part 1. The warrior arrived at the temple with shoulders squared and breath controlled, believing strength was something you sharpened against resistance. He expected drills, wounds, proof. Instead, he was given silence, heavy, deliberate, unyielding. Before dawn, the master pointed to the courtyard, half buried in snow, and handed him a broom worn thin at the handle. No explanation, no correction, just the task. As he swept, his mind rebelled. This is not training. The thought returned every few minutes, louder each time. His hands moved, but his attention scattered. He noticed how irritation arrived before fatigue, Somehow excuses formed before effort even peaked. By the third morning, dread appeared the moment he opened his eyes, as if the day itself were an enemy. The master watched from behind a cracked wooden pillar, saying nothing. Later, he spoke only once. "What you fight, you feed." The warrior did not understand. Not yet, but something unsettling had begun. The enemy had no face, yet it followed him everywhere, whispering before every step. And for the first time, he sensed that the battle had already started, long before the sword was ever raised. What the warrior was about to discover was that awareness does not arrive gently. It confronts you when resistance finally runs out. Continue with part 2. Days folded into each other like unmarked pages. The tasks never changed, but the warrior did. He began noticing the exact moment his mind tried to escape the present. How it reached for memory, fantasy, or complaint, the instant discipline demanded attention. Modern science would later name this default mode interference, the brain's tendency to wander when effort threatens comfort. The ancients needed no name. They simply watched. One morning, while carrying water uphill, the bucket slipped. Ice cracked, water vanished into the dirt. The warrior froze, waiting for reprimand. None came. The master only asked, "Where were you just now?" The question struck harder than any blow. The warrior realized he could not answer. That night, sitting before a single oil lamp, he finally saw it clearly. The enemy was not fear itself, but the automatic obedience he gave it. The mind had ruled him unchecked for years, and he had mistaken that rule for instinct. In that moment, blame dissolved. Not the cold, not the master, not fate, just observation. Awareness settled like a quiet weight in his chest. Heavy, honest, unavoidable. For the first time, the warrior did not try to conquer the mind. He simply watched it, and the watching changed everything. Once the enemy was seen, the next trial would demand something far more painful than effort. The breaking of the self that insisted it already knew the way. Chapter 2. The Breaking of the Ego, Part 1. Winter tightened its grip around the mountain like a silent fist. Snow gathered against the temple walls, sealing pathways, muting the world until even sound seemed disciplined. With the cold came new rules: no unnecessary speech, no questions, no fire after dusk. Meals shrank to bowls of plain rice placed beside a locked wooden drawer the warrior was never permitted to open. Hunger sharpened more than his body. It sharpened his pride. Is this how a warrior is trained? The thought arrived daily now, dressed in quieter language but heavier than before. One evening, while sweeping frost from the steps, he noticed an old practice sword hanging inside the hall, untouched, wrapped in faded cloth bound with the same red thread he had seen at the gate. Weeks had passed. No training, no instruction. A strange dread rose within him, not of failure, but of invisibility. Modern psychology calls this ego threat. When the identity we cling to begins dissolving, the brain reacts as if survival itself is at risk. That night, anger finally warmed what the fire could not. He stepped toward the master, and breath trembling. "I did not climb this mountain to become a servant." The master looked at him for a long moment, not harshly, not kindly, but as one studies a crack forming in ice. Then he spoke. "A cup already full cannot receive water." The words fell softly, yet something inside the warrior fractured. But what the warrior mistook for humiliation was only the first strike against a self he did not yet realize he was ready to lose. Continue with Part 2. The master turned away, leaving the warrior alone with the echo of those words. That night, sleep did not come. His mind replayed every duel he had won, every nod of respect he had earned, every identity he had carried like armor. And for the first time, none of it brought comfort. It felt heavy, like a pack filled with stones he no longer needed, yet could not put down. In the days that followed, the master removed even small recognitions. No correction, no praise. The warrior existed without reflection. Modern studies call this identity deprivation. When external validation disappears, the ego scrambles, growing louder before it dissolves. And it did. Slowly, painfully. One morning, exhausted, he knelt while scrubbing ice from the floor and felt something release. Not triumph, not defeat, but space. A quiet emptiness where the need to be seen once lived. Presence filled it, gentle and steady, like breath returning after a long hold. That night, the locked drawer creaked open on its own from the cold. Inside, nothing. No scroll, no weapon, just emptiness. The lesson settled deep. The ego demands to be filled. Presence does not. Only then did the warrior understand. Mastery begins not with adding strength, but with removing the false self that insists on proving it. Stripped of identity and expectation, the warrior was now ready for a discipline that worked in the unseen hours, where no one, not even the ego, could watch. Chapter 3. Discipline in the Unseen Hours. Part 1. Spring arrived quietly, not with warmth, but with longer shadows. The master woke the warrior while stars still ruled the sky and led him to a stone platform facing the eastern horizon. No blade, no movement, only posture, breath, and waiting. The instruction was simple. Do not move until the sun touches the ridge. At first, the mind revolted. Memories surfaced without invitation. Old victories, old failures, faces long gone. Fears rehearsed themselves with cruel precision. Neuroscience would later describe this as the brain's threat prediction loop, a system designed to keep you alert by replaying what might go wrong. The ancients knew it as noise. Minutes stretched, muscles trembled. Every instinct screamed to adjust, to escape, to do something. Yet the master remained behind him, silent, like a witness who could not be negotiated with. Then a realization cut through the storm. Discipline was not heroic. It was humiliatingly small. Stay, breathe, return attention, again and again. No one watched these hours. No reward followed them. But something subtle began taking shape, an obedience deeper than motivation. Transition. What the warrior was learning in darkness would soon be tested when the mind demanded comfort instead of command. Continue with part 2? Weeks passed, and the ritual deepened. One morning, while adjusting his robe against the cold, the warrior noticed a thin scar circling his wrist. A faint red thread left from an old training bind he barely remembered receiving. He stared at it longer than necessary. A mark from the past, proof of how easily the body forgets pain, yet how stubbornly the mind remembers it. The master finally spoke as dawn broke. The mind obeys what is repeated, not what is wished. Modern behavioral science would later confirm it through neuroplasticity. Pathways strengthen where attention returns. But here, there were no diagrams. Only breath shaping the unseen. So the warrior trained in fragments. Stillness within discomfort. Focus within distraction. Micro-mastery. Victories so quiet, even pride could not detect them. And slowly, the inner noise softened, not vanished, but dethroned. One morning he noticed something unsettling. Silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive, like a drawn bow waiting without urgency. Strength, he realized, was not forceful movement, but unwavering direction. And somewhere between the fading stars and the first light, the warrior sensed it clearly. The path he once searched for across mountains had begun forming inside him. Yet the path inward always leads toward one unavoidable gate. And beyond it waits the oldest companion of the human mind. Fear. Chapter 4. Walking Through Fear. Part 1. The morning the master chose was swallowed by fog. It crept low across the ground, blurring distance, erasing certainty. Without ceremony, the warrior was led to the forest's edge, a place locals avoided, a place where paths twisted back on themselves and compasses lied. No weapon was offered, no instructions except one. Return only when fear no longer leads you. The first steps were easy, then the silence thickened. Branches snapped where no wind blew. Shadows moved without bodies. His pulse quickened, not because danger appeared, but because the mind began inventing it. Modern psychology calls this catastrophic simulation, the brain's habit of rehearsing threat to feel prepared. The ancients knew it as fear pretending to be wisdom. As night descended, dread did not shout. It whispered, "Turn back, you are not ready." For the first time, the warrior felt the full weight of an enemy that did not chase, only guided. Transition. And in that darkness, he would be forced to choose whether fear remained his compass or merely a passing signal. Continue with part 2. Hours blurred. Hunger pressed in, cold settled into bone. At one point, the warrior noticed a fallen shrine, a cracked wooden post wrapped in rotting red thread, half buried in leaves, as if devotion itself had abandoned the place. The sight stirred something old in him, a memory, a loss he had never named. Fear tightened, not from the forest, but from within. Then something shifted. He stopped, not to rest, to face. He placed a hand on his chest and felt the tremor there, steady, alive, unashamed. He breathed into it, slow and deliberate, the same way he had learned before dawn on stone. The shadows did not disappear, the fear did not vanish, but it loosened its grip. Neuroscience would later explain it simply. Fear circuits lose dominance when attention stabilizes in the present. But here, there were no explanations, only experience. He walked forward, step by step, into uncertainty. And by dawn, he stood at the forest's edge again, clothes torn, eyes clear. He was not fearless. He was no longer commanded. The master nodded once, as if greeting a man he had been waiting for. The lesson settled deeply. Courage is not silence in the body. It is direction chosen despite the noise. Yet mastery over fear was only preparation, for the next lesson would reveal that true power is not movement, but the stillness that makes movement inevitable. Chapter 5. The Sword of Stillness. Part 1. Months passed before the master finally reached for the cloth-wrapped object hanging inside the hall, the one bound with faded red thread the warrior had noticed on his first winter night. Dust lifted as the cloth fell away, revealing a wooden sword scarred by years no one spoke about. Some said it once belonged to a man who never lost a duel. Others said it had never needed to. The master placed it gently into the warrior's hands. The weight surprised him, not heavy, yet undeniable. At last, he thought, the real training begins. But the master stepped back and said only, "Do not strike. Stand and feel." They faced each other across the quiet floor. No stance was announced, no signal given. Minutes stretched until time itself seemed to hesitate. Then the warrior sensed it, a density in the air, as if the space between them had substance. The master was utterly still, yet the stillness carried authority. Neuroscience would call this regulation through presence, the nervous system stabilizing others without a word. The ancients called it spirit before motion, and suddenly, the warrior understood something unsettling. The master had already entered the battle, without moving at all. What the warrior was about to discover was that the loudest force in combat is often the one that never announces itself. Continue with part 2. Sweat gathered at the warrior's spine, though the hall was cold. His hands tightened around the wooden blade, not from threat, but from uncertainty. Every instinct urged him to act, to test, to prove, to break the silence. Yet the master did nothing. He simply was. And in that being, the warrior felt himself exposed, as if every unsteady thought echoed loudly in the space between them. Then the master spoke, softly enough that it barely disturbed the air. Conflict is decided before movement begins. He explained that a disciplined mind emits coherence, posture aligned, breath settled, attention undivided. Opponents sense it instinctively, just as animals sense imbalance in the wild. Modern studies confirm this through micro-expressions and nervous system attunement. The body reads truth before words. The warrior lowered the sword. In that instant, the pressure vanished. He realized the blade was never the weapon. It was a mirror. Without inner order, technique collapses into noise. With inner order, even silence commands space. The master nodded once, approval without celebration. This was the threshold, where discipline stopped feeling like effort and became quiet mastery, where strength no longer needed demonstration. And yet, as the warrior stood there, something unsettled him. If stillness could command this much power, what would happen when he finally turned it inward, completely alone? Transition, for mastery earned in presence, must eventually face the final test. Walking away, carrying the silence into a world that does not honor it. Chapter 6. When the mind finally bows. Part 1. Years passed so quietly that the warrior barely noticed when seasons stopped feeling like markers of time. Snow came and melted. Pines shed and renewed. The temple remained unchanged, except for one detail few would have seen. The red thread at the gate had faded almost to white. One morning, without announcement, the master called him to the courtyard. No tasks waited, no broom, no bucket. Only a small wooden chest resting beside a burned ledger whose pages had long ago curled into silence. No one had ever spoken of what was written there, or why it had been destroyed. The master studied him briefly and said, "You are ready, because you no longer rush to be." The words landed without excitement, and that was the proof. Once, the warrior would have felt triumph. Now he felt only clarity, steady, unshaken. Thoughts still appeared, but they passed like birds across a wide sky. Fear visited, yet found nothing to command. Even the ego had grown quieter, like a former ruler whose voice no longer carried authority. Modern science might call this self-regulation mastery, when the prefrontal mind steadies emotional storms. But the ancients described it more simply. The mind had finally learned where to bow. Yet before the warrior could descend the mountain, the master would reveal a final truth. One hidden not in effort, but in what must be carried back into the noise of the world. Continue with part 2, before sunrise, and the master opened the wooden chest. Inside lay nothing of value, no blade, no scroll, no relic. Only a smooth stone marked by a faint natural fracture down its center. He placed it in the warrior's palm. "Carry this," he said, not as a reminder of strength, but of balance. The master's final teaching followed without ceremony. The warrior who commands himself needs no victory to prove it. Then he turned away, as if the lesson had already been given long ago. The descent felt strange. The world below looked unchanged. Villages stirring, voices rising, chaos resuming its familiar rhythm. Yet something subtle disturbed the warrior. The noise no longer pulled at him. The urgency no longer demanded obedience. Presence moved with him, not against him. The ancient system, he understood, was never about escaping disorder. It was about becoming the still point within it. As he reached the valley, he noticed the stone in his hand felt warmer than before. Not heavier, warmer. And for a fleeting moment, an unsettling thought surfaced. Not fear, not doubt, but awareness. If the mind could learn to bow so completely, how many around him were still kneeling to voices they believed were their own? The path did not end there. It never does.